The projector screen flickered to life in the darkened living room. I sat frozen as images of Mateo filled the wall. Photos from our wedding, our honeymoon, candid moments I'd taken myself. Then the music changed. The photos shifted to unflattering pictures of me, poorly edited with ridiculous captions. "Lila's greatest fails?" The room erupted in laughter. My hands gripped the chair arms as my face burned. This was Mateo's memorial gathering, 3 weeks after he died in that car accident. 3 weeks since I'd buried my husband. And they turned it into a joke at my expense. Someone in the back whispered loudly enough for me to hear, "Turn it off. This is wrong." But my mother-in-law, Carmen, sat in the front row with a small smile playing at her lips. She didn't move to stop it. She never did. The video continued showing a clip of me tripping at last year's Christmas party, edited to loop 5 times. More laughter. My brother-in-law Dante slapped his knee, tears streaming down his face. I stood slowly, my vision blurring. Everyone turned to look at me, their laughter fading to uncomfortable silence. I leaned close to Carmen's ear and whispered, "This was your last time humiliating me." Then I walked out into the night. My name is Lila Torres. I'm 31 years old. And until 3 weeks ago, I was married to the kindest man I'd ever known. Mateo saw me when no one else did. His family never understood what he saw in me. The first family gathering I attended was Thanksgiving 5 years ago. I wore my best dress, brought homemade dessert, and practiced conversations in the mirror. I wanted so badly to belong. Carmen introduced me to everyone as Mateo's little project. His sister Valentina looked me up and down and said, "Well, I'm sure she's nice." The words were polite, but her tone made them an insult. At dinner, they seated me at the far end of the table, squeezed between 2 cousins who spent the entire meal talking across me like I wasn't there. When I tried to join the conversation, Dante interrupted with a story about Mateo's ex-girlfriend. Now, she was sophisticated, he'd said, looking directly at me. Mateo squeezed my hand under the table. "Ignore them," he whispered. "They'll warm up eventually." They never did. That night, after everyone left, I found something odd. The projector remote that had been on the coffee table was now in Valentina's purse, which she'd left by the door while saying goodbye. 2 days after the memorial video incident, I returned to Carmen's house to collect some of Mateo's belongings she'd insisted on keeping. I arrived early, letting myself in with the key Mateo had given me years ago. Voices drifted from the kitchen. I froze in the hallway, recognizing Carmen's sharp tone. "If she hadn't stressed him so much, Mateo would still be alive," Carmen said. Always needing attention. Always making him work extra hours to afford her lifestyle. My lifestyle? I worked as a dental hygienist. Mateo worked late because his family's construction company demanded it. She was never good enough for him, Valentina added. I told him from the beginning, but he wouldn't listen. Dante's voice joined in. At least now we don't have to pretend anymore. My hands shook. The box I was carrying slipped, hitting the doorframe with a hollow thud. The kitchen went silent. Footsteps approached. Valentina appeared in the hallway, her face going pale when she saw me. "Lila," she stammered. "We didn't know you were here." I looked past her where Carmen and Dante stood frozen. "Clearly," I said quietly. I set down the box and left without another word. The law office smelled like old paper and furniture polish. I sat across from Mr. Reyes, Mateo's lawyer. Expects this to be simple. Mateo had told me about his will years ago. Everything went to me. We'd discussed it over morning coffee, joking about how morbid it was. Mr. Reyes pushed a document across his desk, his expression uncomfortable. "Mrs. Torres, I need you to review this carefully." I scanned the pages. My name appeared, but only for small personal items. The house we'd bought together, Mateo's life insurance, his share of the family business. Everything substantial went to Carmen with provisions for Dante and Valentina. "This isn't right," I said, my voice shaking. Mateo showed me his will. "This isn't it." Mr. Reyes shifted in his seat. "This is the will that was filed with my office 6 months ago." 6 months? My mind raced. 6 months ago, Mateo was healthy. We just celebrated our 4th anniversary. He never mentioned changing it. Mr. Reyes leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping. "Mrs. Torres, do you trust his family?" The question hung in the air between us. I thought about the memorial video, the kitchen conversation, and the years of small cruelties. "No," I said. "I don't." He nodded slowly. Then I suggest you get your own attorney. The next family dinner happened exactly 2 weeks later. Carmen called to say it was important for the family to stay together during difficult times. I almost refused, but something made me go. I arrived to find the large dining table set beautifully, candles lit and the good china displayed. Everyone was already seated. The only empty chair was at the small folding table in the corner where the children usually sat. "Oh, Lila," Carmen said, not quite meeting my eyes. We ran out of room at the main table. "You don't mind, do you?" Dante smirked from his seat at the head of the table, Mateo's old seat. Valentina studied her wine glass intently. I looked at that small table, at the plastic plates and paper napkins, at the clear message they were sending. Then I smiled. "Of course not," I said sweetly. I sat at the children's table, smoothing my dress. Under the table, I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recorder app, and pressed record. Then I slipped it into my cardigan pocket, microphone facing out. Dinner proceeded with the adults talking loudly, their voices carrying clearly. Every snide comment about poor Mateo being stuck with her, every joke about my job, my clothes, my background, all of it captured. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the bed Mateo and I had shared, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The change will make no sense. Mateo loved his family, but he'd been clear about wanting to take care of me first. I opened my laptop and searched through old emails, looking for anything that might help. That's when I found it. An email from Mateo to me, sent 8 months ago. Subject line, important, read later. "Lila, I just updated my will with Reyes, made sure everything's clear. You're my primary beneficiary for everything. I know my family can be difficult, but this way you'll be protected if anything happens to me. Love you, M." 8 months ago. 2 months before the will Mr. Reyes showed me. My hands trembled as I screenshot the email. Then I checked the properties of the will document Mr. Reyes had given me a digital copy of. The metadata showed the file was created 2 months ago, but the date on the will itself said 6 months. Someone had edited this document. Someone had created a fake will 2 days after Mateo died. I saved everything to 3 different cloud accounts and a USB drive. Then I sat back, my heart pounding. They'd forged legal documents. This wasn't just cruelty anymore. This was a fraud. I was sitting in a small cafe downtown, trying to work up the courage to call a lawyer, when a woman approached my table. She looked to be in her 50s, with kind eyes and graying hair. "Lila Torres?" she asked hesitantly. I nodded, confused. "I'm Patricia. I worked in accounting for your husband's family business until last month." She glanced around nervously. "May I sit?" I gestured to the empty chair, my curiosity overwhelming my caution. Patricia ordered coffee, her hands shaking slightly. When the server left, she leaned forward. "I saw your husband's obituary. I'm so sorry. He was a good man, one of the few decent people in that company." "Thank you," I said carefully. She pulled a USB drive from her purse and slid it across the table. "Do you know what really happened the night Mateo died?" My throat tightened. "The police said he fell asleep at the wheel. He'd been working late." Patricia's expression darkened. "He'd been working late for weeks because they were pressuring him, making him cover up problems, fix accounting errors, work impossible hours." She pushed the USB closer. "I made copies before I left. I think you should have them." "Why?" I whispered. "Because they're going to try to erase him," she said. "And you. I've seen them do it before." I waited until I got home to plug in the USB drive. My hands shook as I clicked through the folders. Spreadsheets, scanned documents, and a folder labeled voice messages. I clicked on the first audio file. Mateo's voice filled my quiet apartment, and I had to bite my lip to keep from sobbing. "Patricia, I don't know what to do," he said. The recording was dated 4 months before his death. Dante's cutting corners on the Rivera project. "The permits aren't complete. The inspection reports are falsified. If someone gets hurt..." Another file, 3 months before. "They're pressuring me to sign off on invoices that don't match actual costs. I think they're skimming from the company, maybe from clients too. I told my mother, but she just said to be a team player." Another, 6 weeks before. "My brother said if I don't cooperate, they'll make things difficult. He said I was being disloyal to the family. But this isn't loyalty, Patricia. This is criminal." I scrolled to the last file, dated 1 week before the accident. My finger hovered over the play button before I clicked. Mateo's voice was tired and strained. If something happens to me, it won't be an accident. They've been threatening me. If I go to the authorities, they'll... The recording cut off. The next family gathering was Dante's birthday party at Carmen's house. I debated not going, but I had a plan now. I needed them to keep underestimating me. I wore a simple dress, brought a generic gift card, and smiled politely at everyone. They treated me like furniture, talking around me, through me, never to me. During dessert, Dante stood with a champagne glass, grinning. "I'd like to make a toast," he announced. Everyone raised their glasses. I kept mine on the table. "To family," Dante said, his eyes sliding to me with barely concealed contempt. "And to those among us who contribute versus those who just, breathe." Laughter rippled through the room. Valentina covered her mouth, but her shoulders shook. "At least some of us work for a living instead of living off others." Dante continued, his meaning clear. I smiled, picked up my phone, and calmly recorded a short video of him finishing his toast. The angle showed his face clearly. The family laughing in the background, the casual cruelty on full display. That night, I created an anonymous account and posted the clip online with a simple caption. "My brother-in-law's toast at a family gathering, weeks after my husband died." Then I waited. The video went viral overnight. By morning, it had 50,000 views. By afternoon, 200,000. People shared it across platforms, commenting furiously. "This is emotional abuse. Imagine treating a widow like this. These people are monsters." News sites picked it up. "Family mocks grieving widow at birthday party." My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives demanding to know if I'd posted it. I didn't respond. The video had been posted anonymously after all. They suspected, but they couldn't prove it. Carmen called a family meeting, insisting someone had violated their privacy, that people didn't understand the context. But the damage was spreading. Dante's construction company started receiving negative reviews. People recognized him from the video. Then I received a message from an unknown number. "I worked with the Torres family business. I have documents about fraud and safety violations. If you're interested, contact me." I stared at the message, my heart racing. More evidence. More proof of what Mateo had tried to expose. I typed back, "I'm interested." The documents came in an encrypted email the next day. Financial records showing inflated invoices, kickbacks, safety violations deliberately ignored to save money. Projects where corners were cut, where building codes were overlooked, where inspections were falsified. One file caught my eye, insurance policies. Multiple policies on key family members, including one on Mateo for $2 million, taken out 18 months ago, with Carmen as the beneficiary. I sat back, the pieces clicking into place. Mateo had been asking questions, threatening to expose their fraud. He'd become a liability, and he had a massive life insurance policy. My hands shook as I scrolled through the documents. There were emails between Dante and Carmen discussing handling the Mateo problem. Nothing explicit, but the implication was clear. At the bottom of one folder was a file, simply labeled Policy Collection, Timeline. It outlined when Mateo's life insurance would pay out and how the money would be distributed among family members. The file was dated 1 month before Mateo's death. I made copies of everything, uploading them to secure cloud storage and creating physical backups on multiple drives. Then I called the attorney Mr. Reyes had quietly recommended. "I need someone who handles fraud," I said, "and possibly something worse." 3 days later, I received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was elderly, cautious. "Is this Lila Torres?" he asked. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Felix. I'm Mateo's uncle, his father's brother. We've never met, but Mateo spoke of you. I heard about his passing. I'm deeply sorry." "Thank you," I said carefully. "I need to tell you something," Felix continued. 2 months before Mateo died, he came to visit me. He was worried. He said his brother and mother were planning to force him out of the company, that they'd been making his life difficult. My grip tightened on the phone. Did he say why? He was asking too many questions about finances. He'd discovered discrepancies. They told him if he didn't stay quiet, they'd make sure he lost everything. Felix paused. I recorded our conversation. I thought it might be important someday. I was right to worry. "Can you send me that recording?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can do better," Felix said. "I can testify. I listened to the recording that evening. Mateo's voice explaining everything to his uncle. The fraud, the threats, His fear that his family would destroy him professionally and personally. And then, a voice in the background of the recording. Dante's voice, caught on a phone call that Mateo had on speaker. Once the policy clears, everything changes. I spent the next week transforming my grief into action. I created detailed timelines of events, organized every piece of evidence, cross-referenced documents, and built a case that even I found overwhelming. My attorney, a sharp woman named Teresa, reviewed everything with increasing concern. "This is substantial," she said finally. "We're not just talking about a forged will. We're looking at fraud, conspiracy, possibly worse." "What do I do?" I asked. "We document everything. We prepare for multiple legal battles. And we make sure you're protected." She looked at me seriously. "When this comes out, Lila, they're going to fight back hard." "I know," I said. "I'm ready." I created a folder on my desktop labeled simply Truth. Inside were subfolders: financial fraud, forged will, insurance fraud, safety violations, voice messages, and timeline. Everything organized, everything backed up, everything ready. That evening, Teresa called. "I've been in contact with investigators. They're interested in what you have." "Very interested." "How long?" I asked. "Before they act?" "Could be weeks. Could be days. But Lila, once this starts, it doesn't stop." "Are you absolutely sure?" I thought about Mateo, about his voice on those recordings, about the years of humiliation, about the forged will and the suspicious insurance policy. "I'm sure," I said. The next family dinner invitation came from Carmen herself. "We need to discuss Mateo's estate," she said on the phone, her voice tight. "It's time to finalize things." I knew what that meant. They wanted me to sign away any remaining claims, accept the forged will, disappear quietly. I arrived exactly on time. The family was gathered around the dining table, their expressions ranging from hostile to nervous. The small children's table had been removed. All the chairs at the main table were filled. I walked directly to the head of the table, where Dante sat. "Excuse me," I said politely. "That's my seat." Dante's face flushed. "This is my seat now. Mateo's gone. This is his house," I said calmly, "which according to his actual will now belongs to me. So either you move, or we have this conversation with everyone standing." Carmen stood abruptly. "How dare you—" "Sit down, Carmen," I interrupted, my voice sharp enough to make her flinch. "Or don't, but I'm taking this seat. I won't be sitting anywhere else ever again." Dante slowly stood and moved to a side chair. I sat down, pulled a folder from my bag, and placed it in the center of the table. "Before we discuss the estate," I said, "I think everyone should see these documents. They're copies. The originals are with my attorney and law enforcement." Carmen reached for the folder with shaking hands. She opened it, her face going pale as she scanned the first page. A detailed breakdown of the insurance fraud, complete with dates, amounts, and email evidence. This is a misunderstanding," she stammered. "Is it?" I asked calmly. "Then explain the emails between you and Dante discussing when the policy would pay out. Explain the life insurance taken out on Mateo without his knowledge. Explain the forged will." Valentina grabbed the folder, reading quickly. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh God. Dante, what did you do?" "Nothing," Dante said, but his voice cracked. "She's making things up. She's trying to frame us because she's bitter." I pulled out my phone, placed it on the table, and pressed play. Mateo's voice filled the room. "If something happens to me, it won't be an accident." The room went silent. Carmen's face crumbled. Valentina started crying. Dante stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You can't prove anything," he said desperately. "I have documents, recordings, testimony, and timeline evidence," I said. "And investigators are already reviewing everything." As if on cue, flashing lights appeared through the window. Police cars pulling up outside. Everyone at the table froze, their faces draining of color. The investigation moved quickly. Detectives interviewed everyone, seized documents from the family business, and froze several bank accounts. The house became a crime scene of sorts. Investigators photographing everything, taking statements. I watched from across the street as they led Dante out in handcuffs. Carmen followed in her own car, driven by an officer. Valentina stood on the porch, sobbing. Over the next weeks, the family fractured. Valentina hired her own attorney, claiming she'd known nothing about the fraud. Cousins and aunts took sides. Some defended Carmen and Dante, others distanced themselves completely. 3 weeks after the dinner, Valentina sent me a message. I need to talk to you, alone, please. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. We agreed to meet in a public parking lot, neutral territory. She sat in her car, windows down, mascara running down her face. I stood outside, keeping my distance. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. For everything. For the video, for the dinners, for all of it. You helped forge the will, I said. It wasn't a question. She nodded, fresh tears streaming. Dante said it was for the family. He said you didn't deserve Mateo's money because you came from nothing. I thought we were protecting family assets. From his wife, I said flatly. I know how it sounds now, she whispered. Valentina wiped her eyes, her hands shaking. I need to tell you everything. Not because it'll help me. I know I'm going to face consequences. But because you deserve to know the truth. I leaned against her car, arms crossed, waiting. After Mateo died, Dante called a family meeting. Just him, Mom, and me. He said Mateo had left everything to you, and that wasn't right. He said you'd take the money and disappear, that we'd lose everything Mateo built. So you forged a will. Mom found an old will from before Mateo married you. We used it as a template, changed the dates, forged signatures. She looked at me, her eyes desperate. Dante said it was just correcting an oversight, that Mateo would have wanted his family taken care of. He told me he wanted me taken care of, I said quietly. He told me explicitly. Valentina nodded miserably. I know that now. But Dante was so convincing. And Mom, she's always favored him. She made it sound reasonable. And the insurance policy? I asked. Her face went even paler. I didn't know about that until the police mentioned it, I swear. When they told me about the $2 million policy, I nearly passed out. Tell me what you do know. She took a shaky breath. They planned this. You weren't supposed to survive socially long enough to fight us. The lawsuits began within weeks. Criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Civil suits for the stolen inheritance. The district attorney was building a case around the insurance, policy, and Mateo's death. The media coverage intensified. Local news became national news. Family accused of defrauding widow after suspicious death. The Torres family name, once respected in local business circles, became synonymous with scandal. I watched from the safety of my apartment as their world collapsed. My phone rang constantly. Reporters requesting interviews, distant relatives apologizing, lawyers offering representation. I declined most of it, but one request stood out. A producer from a documentary series wanted to tell Mateo's story. Stories like this need to be heard, she said. Men who try to do the right thing and the families who silence them. I agreed to meet her. When the interview aired, I sat in my apartment watching myself on screen. I looked tired but strong, telling Mateo's story calmly, showing the evidence, explaining how he'd tried to expose corruption and paid the price. The response was overwhelming. Messages flooded in from people who'd experienced similar family betrayals. Support groups reached out. A nonprofit organization that helped widows navigate legal battles invited me to speak at their annual conference. The conference was held in a hotel ballroom. Hundreds of people in attendance. I stood backstage, my hands shaking, wondering what I'd agreed to. You don't have to do this, Teresa said, standing beside me. She'd come for moral support. Yes, I do, I said. For Mateo. And for everyone else who's been erased by people who were supposed to love them. When they called my name, I walked onto the stage. The audience applauded. I looked out at all those faces. People who understood loss, who understood betrayal. I spoke about grief, about how it's complicated when the people you're supposed to lean on become the ones you need protection from. I spoke about documentation, about trusting your instincts, about... As the verdict was read, I watched Dante's face crumble. Carmen wept openly. Valentina stared at the floor. As we left the courtroom, a cousin I barely knew whispered as I passed. We never thought you'd win. I met her eyes steadily. That was your mistake. The mansion seizure happened on a cold morning in November. I didn't attend, but news footage showed the family leaving, carrying boxes to a rental truck. Neighbors stood watching. The same neighbors who'd watched me be humiliated at gatherings, who'd heard the laughter through open windows. Now they watched in silence as Carmen walked out of the house she'd lived in for 40 years, as Dante supervised the movers with vacant eyes, as Valentina helped her mother into a car. The house was sold at auction, proceeds going to restitution. The family business building followed. Personal assets, jewelry, artwork, everything liquidated to pay what they owed. I received a final legal update from Teresa. The life insurance payout has been transferred to your account. The original will has been legally reinstated. The house you shared with Mateo is officially yours, free and clear. They can't touch it. I sat in that house, the one Mateo and I had bought together, the one that held our memories. It felt different now, quieter, safer. I thought about everything that had happened. The humiliation at every gathering, the cruel video, the forged will, the fight that followed. I thought about Mateo, about how he'd tried to stand up to them and paid with his life. I did it, I whispered to the empty room. I finished what you started. The legal verdicts came down in stages. Dante received a 6-year prison sentence for fraud and conspiracy. Carmen received 3 years, though her age meant she might serve less. Valentina received probation and community service for her lesser role, her cooperation having earned leniency. The courtroom was nearly empty for the final sentencing. Most of the family had stopped attending, embarrassed by the media coverage, by the scandal that had consumed them. I sat in the back row as the judge read the verdicts. When it was over, I stood to leave. That's when I heard my name. A family member I recognized but couldn't name approached me in the hallway. Her expression was complex, shame mixed with something else. "We never thought you'd win," she said quietly. "Because I was quiet?" I asked. "Because they were powerful," she said. "And you were alone. We thought power and family connections meant something. We were wrong." I nodded. Power without truth is just noise. And I was never as alone as you all thought. She looked like she wanted to say more. But I walked past her, out into the afternoon sun. Outside the courthouse, a reporter approached with a microphone. "Mrs. Torres, how does it feel to have justice?" I paused, considering. "It doesn't bring him back," I said simply. "But it honors his memory. That's enough." 6 months after the trials ended, I attended my first family gathering since everything began. A distant cousin's wedding, someone who'd reached out to apologize, to express support. I debated attending, but Teresa encouraged me. "You've won," she said. "Don't let them make you hide." I wore a simple dress, arrived alone, and walked into the reception with my head high. The room fell silent as people noticed me. Some looked away. Others nodded respectfully. No one laughed. I found my seat at a table near the front. Real china. Real silverware. No children's table in sight. Throughout the evening, people approached carefully. Some apologized. Some thanked me for exposing the truth. Some asked how I was doing. No one mentioned Carmen, Dante, or the scandal directly. It hung in the air, unspoken but understood. As dinner was served, someone at my table leaned over. "Do you feel satisfied now?" they asked gently. I thought about the question. About Mateo. About the fight. About everything that had been lost and gained. "Satisfied isn't the right word," I said. "Justice isn't satisfaction. It's just balance restored." They nodded, seeming to understand. Later, as I left the reception, I realized something had shifted. People looked at me differently now. Not with pity or contempt, but with respect. With caution. Maybe even with fear. They'd learned I wasn't who they thought I was. I'm writing this from my apartment, the one I moved to after selling the house. Too many memories there, both beautiful and painful. This place is smaller, simpler mine. Sunlight pours through the windows. My laptop sits open on the table, this story growing word by word. Teresa suggested I write it down. Not for publication necessarily, but for processing. For closure. But as I write, I realize it might help someone else. Someone sitting at a children's table. Someone being humiliated at gatherings. Someone being erased by people who should protect them. The Torres family scattered. Dante's in prison. Carmen's in a small apartment. Supported by the few relatives who'll still speak to her. Valentina moved to another state. Trying to rebuild under a new name, I see Felix occasionally. He's the only family member I maintain contact with. He sends cards on holidays, calls to check on me. He tells me Mateo would be proud. I've started speaking at conferences regularly, helping widows navigate complex legal battles. I've learned that my story isn't unique, just unusually public. People ask if I regret the fight, if I wish I'd just taken the settlement and walked away. The answer is always no. They tried to embarrass me at every family gathering, tried to make me so small I'd disappear. But in the end, the only thing exposed was who they truly were. And I'm still here, stronger, freer, unafraid. They wanted me gone. Instead, they created someone they now fear.